That was Journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Everyone else is singing.
I think this is my favorite, or one of my favorite pictures of all of residency. This is my last lecture, and I'm Dr. Jack Groh. This was taken, where was this taken? San Diego. Very late hour. So, with any lecture I give, there's going to be a few disclaimers. There will be quotes, numbers, probably too many photos. At times I'll probably read from the slides, so I apologize for that. This was down at St. Mary's in their cath lab type of thing, Interventional Stroke Center. So it's a Wednesday. With any lecture, I really need objectives or else I get lost. The first thing is I'm going to discuss how I got here. The second thing is going to be Malcolm Gladwell and the book Outliers. And the last thing will be 10 things I learned in residency. How did I get here? Well, I pretty much got here because of this group of people right here. This is my brother and his wife, my mom and dad, and then Jamie and I. Home. I was originally born in Manchester, New Hampshire, just down the street from Fowles. When I was a little one, we moved to Buffalo, New York. Go Buffalo Bills. I know that we're terrible, but I'm still a fan. At around age 11, my dad made the hard choice to switch jobs. We moved to a place I now call home, which is Hilton Head Island, and that's actually a sunset on Hilton Head. This is also Hilton Head. I put this in here because Jamie and I got married on the 18th green there. Jeannie, Dave, and Nate were present for it, and I really appreciate them coming all the way up there to be present for my wedding. But there is no other place that I think I'll ever call home besides Hilton Head Island. Here's some just basic pictures. This is when my brother and I used to be good looking. There's me in my Buffalo Bills hat, and a picture that my mom had professionally done that she still gets so pissed that my brother wore that bracelet. You can see his friendship bracelet down at the bottom. But it's one of her favorite pictures, so I put it in here. My family. They are the only reason that I'm pretty much here today. My parents met at the age of 16, and they were high school sweethearts. My father paid his own way through Cornell University. He was a collegiate swimmer and sold beer to pay the bills. He constantly reinvents himself all the time. At age 41, he took a company public, which is essentially you put it on the American stock market. At age 50, he decided to become an investment banker. He took all the tests that most 20-year-olds take just because he figured it would be a way to have more income for our family. Then, after the market crashed, he worked to become the chief operating officer of a DuPont branch in Virginia, which is what he's doing now. My father is the best example of everything I want to be as a man. When I sat down to write this lecture, I struggled to put my thoughts down, which I think Nate had a similar problem. Who did I call to help? The one who always answers, and that's my mom. Be happy that you aren't sitting through the lecture I came up with before I called her. She has always been there to help me with every mistake and every problem. That's my brother and my mom at his graduation. My brother Jay. Nobody loves life more. He can make me laugh even on my worst day. And I put this note here, pickling peppers at 11 p.m. And the reason I put that in there, I wanted to remind myself to tell a story. I had one of those horrible shifts where everybody, you're stressed out, good people died, a lot of sick people, and I just didn't have a very good day. And so I called him at 11 p.m. and I said, "Hey brother, how are you?" He said, "I'm good." I said, "What are you up to?" He goes, "Well, I'm pickling peppers." And it was like a Tuesday. And I guess the bottom line is he can always make me smile, and there's no one more loyal or protective of his family. I even had him send me a picture to prove that he was actually doing that. So I held on to this for almost a year and a half. Here's more picture of my brother and I. He's been my best friend for a very long time. And this is the first cruise I ever went on. We had a good time. My other family. This is my little puppy Madison. This is when she was a little one and her now. She's literally the best dog on the planet. Just saying. I wouldn't have accomplished anything if it wasn't for the constant love and support of my family. Anything good that I've done is a direct result of their sacrifice and guidance. Dr. Matisse once said to me, "Find your treasure." Well, this is mine. It's also my greatest accomplishment. Matisse once referred to this as the Groh phenomenon because it is so unbelievable. I don't know how I convinced her to marry me, but I am forever grateful that she said yes. Thank you for loving me. So why medicine? Medicine, for me, kind of came from this gentleman here. There's me. We're on an 8th grade field trip down at Disneyland, I believe. That young gentleman is Rhett Thomas. Rhett and I were teammates and friends. Basically the type of friends that you know each other, you're captains of the same team, but you're not necessarily best friends, just like a typical middle school relationship. During our 8th grade year, he began to complain of back pain, which kept him out of games. After 6 months of complaining and several doctor's visits, Rhett spiked a fever. One doctor decided it was time to scan the 15-year-old head to toe, which I know we all struggle with every day. Unfortunately, they found a softball-sized tumor overlying his spine. Rhett was then diagnosed with metastatic Ewing sarcoma. During his chemotherapy treatments, a parent from our school arranged for Rhett to meet one of his favorite athletes, Karl Malone. That's him there. He played for the Utah Jazz, and he was a fairly famous basketball player. Rhett got to sit in on practice, and immediately afterward, Malone autographed everything he was wearing for Rhett. After several months in remission, he had gone through all of his treatments. Rhett was given the news that unfortunately his cancer had returned. His prognosis wasn't good, and it was likely he would succumb to the disease. One night at home, Karl Malone called Rhett. This is a story I always struggled to tell, but essentially, Karl Malone called Rhett and said, "Hey, how you doing, son?" And he said, "Well, hey, Mr. Malone, I'm very sorry to tell you this, but it sounds like the cancer's back and it doesn't sound good." Karl Malone said, "Well, to let you know that I'm thinking of you, in my game tonight I will likely get fouled. If I make a foul shot, I will signal to you." And Rhett said, "Well, I'll be watching the whole game, and I'm excited to see it, and I hope you play well." It wasn't but the first quarter that Karl Malone, of course, got fouled. He stepped up to the line, made his shot, and then pointed to Rhett. Made his second shot and pointed to Rhett. Unfortunately, the next morning, Rhett passed away. This is what set me on my journey towards emergency medicine. This quote, I think, really emphasizes what we do as emergency doctors. Great emergency physicians specialize and excel at the critical care of every other medical specialty. As residents, we want to know how to not just become emergency physicians, but to become great emergency physicians. And that is the question: how do we become great emergency doctors? I read a book that I think helped answer this question. Malcolm Gladwell, the author of the book Outliers, tried to define what makes a person special. For those that haven't read the book, he basically defined an outlier as a person whose abilities, achievements, and skills lie outside the statistical probability. Some of the examples he used in the book were the Beatles, Bill Gates, and Bobby Fischer. Two components of an outlier that Gladwell mentions in his book are experience and potential, which I then applied to our residency. Experience. How much time does it take to become Bill Gates, the Beatles, Bobby Fischer, or Jason Morris? Gladwell quantified the outlier experience as approximately 10,000 hours. For most outliers, this takes almost 10 years to complete. Bobby Fischer did it in 9, but he started very young. My question is, how close does our residency get us to those 10,000 hours? Here are all 4 years of all of our rotations compiled on basically 2 sheets. The next one also has some rotations. It's been a long 4 years, but great 4 years. Year 1, all of the EM, conference hours, OBGYN, all the other rotations we did for specifically me, since that's the only one that I had, the total hours that I spent was 1,986 hours doing clinical work. This does not include Journal Club for obvious reasons. But it includes everything else. Year 2, same thing, EM hours, conference hours, IM, CCU. Total hours, 1,785. Year 3, we worked significantly harder. I guess that's because of trauma. Trauma really kind of was the outlier within my year. And that totaled 2,242 clinical hours. Year 4, and this actually includes the last month that I've yet to do, the total is going to be 1,989 hours. So, 8,002 hours is what I've totaled over the past 4 years on all my clinical work. So close, yet so far. I love you, Reggie.
I don't want to wear that.
Despite a jam-packed 4 years, we are still 2,000 hours away. More specifically, I'm 2,000 hours away. Everyone also spent those hours differently, so everything's going to be differently. The true result, I think, of how we become great emergency physicians is really going to be dependent on how much we love the process. Potential. How smart is smart enough? For those of you that are concerned about your boards, let me give you some perspective on tests. And when you go to interview, I thought about this when I was doing this lecture yesterday, actually. When you interview students, take their board scores with a grain of salt, essentially. And I'll tell you why. SAT, first time I took it, this is based out of 1600, I got a 960. SAT second time went up a little bit, but not very much, and that's after Kaplan. I got a 1030. ACT, the test that you're supposed to take if you're not good at the SAT. I got a 24. I looked up a good score is essentially 30 or above. I think a max is a 36. MCAT first time. This was also after a Kaplan course. Got a 23. MCAT second time. Step 1, I got a 480. Step 2, 498. Step 3, 510. And if you're curious, I did pass the PE. But essentially, that's all my board scores, and I thought that might give you some perspective. Bottom line, you can all do hard things with the training you receive at St. Lucie. 10 things I learned in residency. Emergency medicine is a delicate balance between Occam's razor and Murphy's Law. Occam's razor, being the simplest explanation, is usually the right one. And Murphy's Law, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. 2, pick your battles with the nurses. I want to win and avoid the battle at the same time. If you have to go to battle, it should be your last resort. 3, the pride cometh before the fall. Dr. Matisse always says to us, you're only as good as your last mistake. Well, in reference to one of the LPs that he and I both tried on, I said this to him. Dr. Matisse, maybe it was a dry tap. His response, Dr. Groh, that is what losers call. Number 4, work hard to create your own luck. These gentlemen are not very good.
Bill up wants $1.
And this was a quote by Dr. Bertha, but essentially a royal flush can always be beaten by a Smith & Wesson. He loves guns. I thought it was pertinent. Number 5, know where Rick is at all times. You forgot me. You don't want to get rent. Learn from your classmates. Your classmates will have qualities that you will want to emulate. Mine had several, but I thought I would at least recognize one for each of them. Jeannie, her dedication. My board score is basically a direct result of her recommendations and her willingness to help me succeed. Nate, he always loves life to the fullest and appreciates the small things. Dave, he is fearless, jumping out of planes, kiteboarding, picking up that pediatric patient, and writing letters. 7, enjoy the Wednesdays. One of my biggest fears is that I will no longer enjoy coming to work now that I won't be seeing all of you. Enjoy the time you have with your friends and fellow residents and your attendants. 8, this is the best residency in the country. I put this picture in because it's very important to me. This gentleman here down at the bottom, I know it was in Leaf's last lecture last year, but his story had a significant impact on me. Essentially, we coded him as a team for 45 minutes, shocked him 16 to 17 times. But he lived, he survived, and he came back to thank us. And so I really like this picture because it really puts in the team aspect of what we do. 9, Dr. Horry may throw a show at you even if he did do something right. Our residency is a product of our fantastic attendings. Dr. Sasson elevated our emergency department and subsequently our residency to a new level within the hospital. Dr. Horry and our 3 critical patients, that was a note to me to just discuss my first, excuse my language, but oh shit moment was with her. We had 3 people that needed to be intubated. One was 41 years old, having a heart attack and dying. The other 2 were a little bit older, and she couldn't be everywhere at once. She sent me into 2 rooms and basically said, Jack, you need to intubate both of them, and you can't screw up. This is when you start. And that moment and her willingness to let me do it is something that I think needs to be recognized. Dr. Fowles, if I could be half the physician she was on her first day, I know I will be okay. Dr. Mathai, I will always respect her for her constant support she's shown me and dedication to our residency. And if you don't know what to do, you can always ask Dr. Morse. Number 10, Dr. Matisse is great. One of the things Malcolm Gladwell failed to address in his book is the importance of having a mentor. If I resemble an emergency physician in any way, it is because of his guidance. Being away from my family, he took the role of teacher, parent, and coach, all while being present for his own family. You push me to be better, and there are no words that can describe how grateful I am. Thank you for everything. To Dr. Davison, I wish you the best of luck, but this is the real baby Groh. For those of you that don't know, Jamie and I are having a baby. And so number 11, which I added for good measure, is I'll do anything not to be replaced. Thank you all very much.
That was fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.